Welcome to New Realities. I'm Alan Steinfeld, and this program is an ongoing series about awakening, about spiritual qualities and partnerships in a way. That's why I'm talking today to Bonny Meyer, her book, Perfectly Paired. Let's see the book, Bonny. Can you hold it up? And there it is, and the subtitle is what? The Love Affair Behind the Silver Oak Cellars, which is your story of your husband and the wine business that you've been in and some environmental stuff. But tell me about this idea of perfectly paired. I mean, I've been looking for that for a long time. What do you mean? And the sacred relationships, talk about that, because that's a big part of your book, so please.
It is. For years and years, people would say to me, well, Justin and I had a extraordinary relationship. And although I felt that it was true, it bothered me because my hope is that everyone, and my belief is that everyone can have an extraordinary relationship.
Yeah.
And so one of the primary reasons I wrote the book, Perfectly Paired, is to just through stories, through little vignettes, through stories of our relationship that other people could find their way there. That it's not complicated, it's not hard. It starts with some very basic things like kindness and gratitude and appreciation, all those kind of just normal, simple stuff that actually goes into creating this an extraordinary relationship. Now, when I think about sacred relationship, ours was a unique story in the sense that we started out when we just met each other. Justin was a monk, and so he had.
You mean a celibate sort of monk?
Yes, a celibate sort of guy.
And then he met you, right? And then it was all over.
Well, it wasn't exactly all over because we met, we became friends, had a lot to do with music, playing music together, and but we realized after a number of months that we were in love with each other, but it was our belief and commitment to each other that we would not be together as a couple. And so it was a 5-year journey of trying not to be in love and just.
Is it hard to not be in love? Isn't that a hard thing? It's harder than being in love, I think.
It is.
So what made you decide, well, let's just go for it?
Let's just do it. Well, he was a Christian brother, and he was being trained to be in charge of Christian Brothers Winery, which in the late 60s was one of the largest wineries in the country. And so that role brought with it a lot of responsibility. The winery would make money to fund the schools and that the Christian Brothers ran. So he felt a tremendous amount of responsibility to his order, his monastic order. But after about 5 years, he made some observations and struggled with the idea of leaving. And ultimately he did. He just had met some brothers. He knew some brothers that were really spiritual and wonderful people, and others who were bitter and unhappy people. And he just says, I don't want to be one of those casualties. So on one momentous day, he told me that he decided to leave the monastery, and the next sentence was, would you marry me? Yeah.
That is so cute. That is so sweet. Wow.
I said, yeah.
What a shock for you, though, huh?
Right. I was completely surprised and had done my best. You know, the beginning of a sacred relationship is to not have any you know, attachment to the other person. And as you know, a spiritual life, a lot of it is not letting go of attachments. You can love things and enjoy them and have passion for them, but not having that attachment. So the fact that we spent 5 years of deepening our relationship with each other, but at the same time not being attached, I
Uh,
think really formed this very strong foundation for our relationship.
but I mean, what's the difference though between a sacred relationship and, I mean, yes, respect and love. Hopefully that's in every relationship, but I think there was something else in your relation, like a higher spiritual purpose or something. That's the sense I get. Can you talk about that?
Well, there there was part of it was in the creation of Silver Oak Cellars, which became one of the most um, famous wineries at the time. It
But that's a
still is.
winery you two created together,
We
and
did, we
because
did,
yeah,
and it
he was
was
in the
and it
wine.
was.
Yeah, he was dealing with wine through the Christian Brother, and you were in the wine business too before that.
I was not. I was a student studying psychology and education.
Oh, okay.
So when we got married, he had been a monk, a celibate, and you know, vow of poverty. So when we got married, I had a car and he had a dog. That was the sum total of our fortune. But the same week that same week we were married, we started Silver Oak because he had found a financial partner. But what I wanted to say about the sacredness of it is because we had such strong values that we shared, those values really were integral to that business. And one of the values was generosity. Another value was fun. Um, these were so much a part of our business, and I believe that that's what made our business so successful in ways way beyond our wildest imagination. And people were attracted to that. And so we don't know. I think we're a little bit unconscious of how attractive our values can be.
Right. No, that's a great point. So you started this wine making business from practically nothing, and
Correct.
you built it up. I mean, but yeah, it's great to have values, but really, what did make it so popular? Was it the taste of the wine? Was it, I don't know what makes wine popular, but
Well, wine is, you know, Ellen, wine is just like food. You happen to know that there are certain restaurants that you can go to that there's something that you can't quite define, but the person puts a lot of love and passion into their food, and you can taste it. And that was true of our business. A lot of passion and love. You know, I often will tell people it was the love that infused the Cabernet and made the wine so spectacular and memorable.
wow.
And let's see, other things about sacred relationship is there's a few things in the book. It's an adult book. There's a little bit about sacred sex in the book.
Oh, like
Um,
mantra, as they would say.
well, not exactly that, but the when two people come together and you completely surrender to the other,
Mm,
um, it it colors everything you do. It colored our work. It colored our life together. It colored our relationship and our sexual aspect of our relationship. So it's all all of it.
that's
Um,
real union, right? That's a real
yeah,
oneness coming together as as the sacred masculine, feminine, in
Exactly.
and that has like a spiritual awakening to it. It's not just, it transcends sex at that point.
Well, that's exactly right, Ellen.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. Um, and in fact, I feel like my relationship and relationship can be a crucible of transformation.
Mm. And it was for you, huh? It
And
was.
it was, yeah.
Because I mean, he was a monk for how long? Was he a
He
monk?
was a monk. He was a monk for 15 years,
Wow.
and I would tell him from time to time, if he had not been a monk, I never would have married him.
Why is
because
that? Why do you think that?
because he had come from a pretty rough background, and you could tell from photographs of him when he was a teenager that he was a pretty tough kid. And being meditating, 15 years of meditating in the monastery really softened him
Mm,
in ways that were so important um, to
mm.
me and our relationship.
I mean, why did he become a monk in the first place? What was he looking for?
What he had gone to a Christian Brothers high school, and he had been was really touched by his teachers who had encouraged his leadership and gave him, I don't know, some really encouraged him, gave him self-confidence. They were coaches. Generally, he was really into sports. And so they made a big difference to him. And so he wanted to make that difference for other young kids too.
And he wasn't interested in getting married, having a family. He wasn't, that was nothing he wanted to do at that
Well, I don't, he never actually, I never said, hey, did you ever think about it? I think he was just a normal kid.
Yeah.
It was a normal young man. He had girlfriends, but then decided he wanted to devote himself to young students.
And where was he from?
He was from Bakersfield.
And you're from California too?
Yes. Yeah. I have lived my whole life in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Mhm.
Well, I live now in Napa Valley, been here longest. But yeah, he was from Bakersfield.
So in a sacred relationship, did you, I mean, were they like soulmates in a way? Did you feel like that? Or is that something else?
We were, I can't say that I really know what soulmate is and isn't. But we were immediate friends. We happened to meet on his birthday. Another young man had invited me to the professor's house where he was living, and for his birthday party. And he said, "Bring your guitar," because this guy Brother Justin plays the banjo. So I brought my guitar. I kind of hit it, and then I brought it out to play Happy Birthday, and his eyes just lit up. And one of the first photographs in the book is us sitting at that dinner table on his birthday. He had brought out his long neck banjo,
Mm-hmm.
and I was playing my guitar. And we started singing at the dinner table, and then retired to their family room and played music for 2 or 3 hours.
The two of you together.
And yes, with the other members of that family, and so it was a significant start of a friendship.
But did you sort of fall in love at that moment? And not to be too personal, but no, it wasn't that.
No,
Just kind of hanging.
yeah,
When
I
did you?
never, I never thought of him as a potential partner, right? I just, yeah, and so it never occurred to me to even acknowledge that I was attracted to him.
Uh-huh. But you
until
were.
one day
Yeah.
until one day he told me that he was in love with me, and then I kind of went backwards in my memory banks and go, oh yeah, huh. Yes, now I realize I'm in love with you too. So
Uh,
but it,
sweet. But but tell me about, like, so he left the monastery, you opened up this wine business, Oak Dale Wine, and it was successful. But tell me about being happy, because I think that's what everyone really wants to know about. I mean, when you said you were really happy, what was it that made you happy? Most people have no idea what that means. So tell me about that.
So, so happiness, so in my understanding, is a state of being. It's yes, we can be happy as an emotions. We're surprised by something, and that can have some happiness. But happiness for me is a state of being. It's a choice. It's an attitude, and I can choose to be happy no matter what. And people that are in great relationships, both of them are happy people. We sometimes have this idea that someone else can make us happy or we can make them happy, and it's not so. If you're in a relationship and one person is unhappy, it won't be a happy relationship.
That is such
And
a good point. Thank you, Bonnie, for saying that. So if you want to be happy in a relationship, look for a happy person. Is that what?
yeah, that's exactly right.
That's so important. Thank you for that key. But tell me, was it always? I mean, you seem very happy now, and we'll get to like the whole story. But you were happy together besides just being happy as a person. Talk about that happy part together a little bit.
And the happy part. Well, I would say that we were married for almost 30 years, and we probably had 2 or 3 arguments in that 30 years. So we just naturally got along very, very well. And again, if you have very similar values, it makes a big difference. And it's not just the value that you say you have, you've got to live those, right? And your kindness, generosity, I already mentioned, those things go a long way. And he was he was he was he was very funny and quite a character. So he was really fun to be with. He was also very genuine and unpretentious. He did not have an ego. Now that's huge too, right? If we're together as a couple, you and I, Alan, if we're together,
Are you proposing?
and one of us has an ego, we'll both always be tripping over that ego.
Right. You're right. You're right. Or if one person is angry. I just kind of broke up with someone who was just too reactive. There's always a reason to react, and if like you're with that kind of person, there'll always be a reason to be reactive, and people don't change even if you want them to. And so
that's right.
That first thing you said is something I'm going to really focus on. If you want to be happy, be with a happy person. Yes, but also you enjoyed each other. You enjoyed each other's company all the time, right? I mean,
we did.
There was no dull moments, huh? There was no.
Okay, so there were a couple of times when we worked together, and there were on 2 occasions I quit.
Why is that?
But within a week I was back,
Why did you quit? I mean,
I thought you quit. Well, every now and then, Justin, even though he basically was pretty humble person, every now and then he would get what I would call bossitis. So
what is it?
Bossitis.
Oh, yeah, right. I know.
And so everybody in the organization would do whatever he wanted them to do, and he would come home with, and he would get this attitude like, where he would be a little bit too full of himself. Right.
And you told him that
yeah,
and he didn't like that.
so I said, no, I don't want to be around this anymore. There were a couple times when yeah, there were a couple of things that from time to time that we needed to work through, and but that's part of the crucible, right? If relationship is a crucible for transformation, then it's got to work us, and you've got to talk through these things. I would say for the most part, when we got really upset with each other, it was because we missed each other.
Mm,
It always, once we talk about it, it always came down to, I feel like you're not spending enough time with me.
mm,
And, at the end of the day, well, what a great problem.
yeah.
It means you love me and want to spend more time with me.
But I think what you're saying, and it's really beautiful, the whole idea that you're building that picture is that you just like being, except for those weeks you left, you just like you just like being with each other, and
You did.
you built a business together that was very, very successful. I mean, I think you're right. It was the love you had with each other that went into the wine, and also went into this book. I think this book
Hmm.
carries that. I mean, it's a love story, right? This perfectly paired.
It, it is a love story. And one of the things I've told to people, I gave a number of copies away to friends, and I said, look, if you don't have time to read it, it's no problem. Just hold it to your heart, and you'll be able to feel the energy of it.
Mm,
And I think I don't think I'm just making that up.
no, I feel it. I feel
Yeah.
it. But do you want to talk about then what happened after 30? I mean, he died, and like how you dealt with that
Sure.
whole process, because he's still a part of you. But yeah, talk about that.
So yes, just that we after about almost 30 years, we sold Silver Oak, and soon after that, um, Justin died suddenly of a heart attack, and I was devastated. And he had, without me really thinking about it, he had become my reason for living. He had really, he was so much a part of me. We were such a part of each other. And so for for a while, it took me quite a while. I went through a grief process and a grief journey, and I talk about that in the book mostly because we don't talk about that enough in
Yeah.
our culture, and and especially right now with COVID, people are dying, people are losing their jobs, life is changing radically, and so a lot of people are experiencing some form of grief. And the more we can talk about it and understand it, the better. So there's a grief journey that is described in Perfectly Paired, but also like the day after, it was, yeah, it was the day after Justin died, he started showing up.
How did he show up? Like, how did you feel him?
So the first thing that happened is I was sitting with my daughter, and about 10 feet away, there was a little, kind of a little miniature waterfall, and it had pebbles on it. And we were sitting there quietly talking and talking about her dad, and a pebble comes flying over from that 10 feet away and lands at my feet.
Wow.
And we both look at the pebble, we look at each other, we look at the pebble, we look at each other, and finally, Holly just said, "Hi, Daddy." There was no other explanation for how this pebble, and why this pebble would have flown across the room. And then that very next day, he started, um, he kind of took over an electric appliance, which spirits seem to be able to deal with electronics better than other things.
Right.
And he took over an electric, it was a hair dryer, it was a wall-mounted hair dryer that he hated. And that next day it broke and would no longer work when it was supposed to work, but it would go on every time I was deeply in grief.
Mm,
And it would quiet down and stop when I felt better. And And that went on for a year.
Amazing. Amazing.
And so it was his way of letting me know that he was there. And then eventually I had lucid dreams and then learned how in meditation to meet with him on in the spiritual realm.
And have you done that? Have you met with him like
Yes.
every day, every night? I mean,
I don't do it every day, but yes.
How, how's he doing? What's it like over there? How's he doing?
He's doing fine. I've actually, interestingly enough, I've never asked him, so what is it like over there? But my sense is that that he's occupied, that he has we don't, fortunately or unfortunately, it's not like retirement. We don't, when we die, we don't just stop.
Right.
And people in those spiritual realms are busy improving themselves and helping others in some way.
But he's also with you all the time. Don't you feel him around? So he's always, and you feel that, right? You feel the presence.
I do more than before. When I was deep in grief, I didn't. Just think about if you are really upset about something, it kind of can consume you, and you're not open to what ideas or anything else that could help you. And so the deeper in grief I was, the harder that was. But today, a number of years later, I feel his presence all the time.
How long ago did he die?
It was 18 or 19 years ago now.
Oh,
so
wow. And how many children did you have?
3.
3 together. You had 3 children.
Yeah.
But writing the book is new. Was the writing the book? We'll talk about that as a recapitulation of that whole feeling sense.
Yeah. Well, again, I decided to write the book because I wanted to invite people. It's the book. The stories are within the book. Is a little bit of a treasure map. You read the stories. It's not a how-to book, but you read the stories, and you will. People often say, "Wow, it's really made me think about my relationships." Or
what kind of stories are in the book? The book's not just your story. What stories are?
Well, they're my. It's a memoir, so they're all my stories.
Okay.
But there's each little story is about 2 or 3 pages. So it's, there's just lots and lots of stories. Some of them are sad, some of them are really funny, and but through reading the stories, the reason I wrote it is to help people kind of actually. Your listeners and viewers may relate to this. Raise people's vibrations. The whole intent was to actually invite people to a higher form of relationship or spiritual living.
Well, no, I was just wondering if you could give me a story so I could feel. I mean, I don't want to give away your whole book, but just give me something.
Well, I guess when I talk about, I do talk about, when I talk about our relationship and some the easygoing times and some things that wove its way, us flirting together, and it's an invitation for couples who maybe their relationship isn't as easygoing, and it's an invitation that you can do this, you can have this too.
But how, if their relationship isn't easygoing, how can they have it too? With your example, I'm just curious, like, what could they learn or do?
Well, I guess I'm hoping to give them permission to flirt and to play
with each other,
right? With each other. There's a lot of, actually, at the back of the book, there's a bibliography that has relationship books. It has books on grief. It has books on how to meet up with someone after they've died.
Mm.
It's so there's all these different kinds of books if people really want to get deeper into it. So it's the book so many ways is an invitation, but writing the book, you, I I knew that if I'm going to invite people to be more authentic and more intimate with their partner, I need to be that way as I write it. So I kind of wrote figuratively. I wrote the book with my eyes closed. I wrote it in a way that is very, very intimate and with the kind of mental idea nobody's ever going to read this. So I can say anything. And I gave myself permission to just be, to yeah, say things. My secretary says, "Are you sure you want to say this?" You know, yep, I am.
Well, it's very vulnerable and very open, but that's what makes the book so great, I would imagine, because you let yourself be vulnerable and real, and it's a reflection of the relationship itself. That's what.
Well, and that's part of the invitation, right?
Yes.
If we want, and you know, a key to great relationship is vulnerability, right? Yeah.
No, that's so good. But so you, but the one thing I'm also interested in, you had this beautiful relationship with Justin, your husband, for 30 years. But how did that relationship transfer to relationships with your children or other people you know? Is there something you took from that that you then would make other things special, you know? Like, I mean, can you talk about that?
Well, you know, one doesn't have to one doesn't have to be in a dating relationship or married relationship um, to use the principles of sacred relationship. I can have a sacred relationship. I do have a sacred relationship in a lot of ways with my best friend, where we're completely vulnerable. There is tremendous trust. Um, I feel like I can say everything, and so the principles really are the same.
And I think what makes something sacred is that you're honoring that person. I mean, I would think you're probably never critical or judgmental. I mean, you could point things out.
Right.
Yeah, talk about that, because so many people are in relationships where they're judging each other and themselves, and it's like,
It's a killer, right?
yes.
It's a killer. If I'm judging myself, my self this esteem is, you know, you know, one of our um, you know, if we're gonna have a spiritual relationship with God, if we're gonna love God, the first thing I have to do is love myself. And if I'm judgmental of myself, I'm probably judgmental of everybody else too.
I'm sure people are. That's yes.
You know, and that will ultimately kill a relationship. Now, it's certainly important to say to someone, you know, I'm feeling uncomfortable about, but that's not judging what they're doing. It's just saying I'm feeling uncomfortable, and we have to be honest about that. But to judge other people yeah, it's not the path.
Right. I wonder, it just came to me, but are you now counseling other people? Or would you, like a couple comes to you and say, you know, we're trying to, I think you'd be great at that. I don't know. Do you do that?
Thank you. No, I don't.
Well,
I don't.
it could be great. You have the formula, you have the experience and the wisdom. I would come to you next time I have a problem, okay?
Well, okay, thank you. Call me anytime.
Okay. No, I think you'd be excellent because, I think you'd be able to spot the issues right off if two people are not getting along. And there's maybe the thing where maybe those two people aren't, as you would say, perfectly paired. That's possible, right?
It is possible. I don't, yeah, yeah. It's if you're really struggling with somebody, then, I always found it a little bit strange when people who are dating go to a couples counselor, and I'm going, well, wait a second, just dating is dating. Just date somebody else. Find somebody who's easy to be with. And I think the older we get, Alan, we're a lot better about that logic. Is we just want to find somebody who's easy to be with. We're less looking for someone who is, hot or whatever that younger people are more attracted to. We just want someone who's easy to be with.
So what's like next for you? You got your book, you're going to be out promoting this as best you can and considering where we're at, but I do think you could do a workshop and a lecture. Are you giving lectures about relationships or?
No, I'm not. In this country, you kind of need a degree. I have a degree in psychology, but you need a master's degree to be a marriage and family counselor. So no, I don't have
Be
any.
a coach though. You could be a coach with no degree. You could be a marriage coach, and you don't need to be. It's like, and I think you'd be great. Because of, like I said, your experience. But but right now you're still making wine, right?
Still making wine, and actually, my business life is primarily as an investor. So after selling Silver Oak and then Justin's death soon after, all of a sudden I became an accidental investor. I had invested some money before that we had, but all of a sudden this estate gets created. And after a few years of that, only a couple of years, I decided I was unhappy with my very boring, very balanced portfolio. Right. And so I started investing in what's called now regenerative companies. So companies that solve an environmental, economic, or social problem through the way they do their business. So that's actually my primary work is investing, and then also very interested in regenerative farming. And so I have a vineyard around me, 20 acres of vineyard, and we're more and more we make decisions how we farm so that the soil improves year after year. That's what regenerative farming is, or a regenerative business. The world, in some way or another, it gets better year after year.
That's exactly what we need at this time, regenerative businesses and ways of living. And
yes.
So this is your excitement now, the regenerative economy, the regenerative.
Yes.
That's great. We could do a whole show about that next time, or, I think that's really exciting. What would you just tell people about that, like what to look for as they're investing in businesses or supporting businesses? What do you look for?
Well, so let me just widen the point of view a bit. Everything in my life that I do, I can make a decision on whether what I've done is making things better or worse. There's almost nothing that's neutral. And so I can live my life in a way. So we all can actually just think about am I making this better or am I making it worse? And
Every little thing,
yeah,
everything. I mean,
everything,
yeah, yes.
everything.
Simplicity. Yeah.
Just a matter of being conscious about my everyday actions.
Mm,
And then when it comes to investing, just look at the whole business or a fund, the nature of a fund, and look at every aspect of it. Is it truly there has become in investing world a lot of greenwashing.
mhm.
So things that say that they are positive, have a positive impact, but you really look under the hood and it's not actually all that great. So just being very thoughtful in the way I invest. Does it truly make life better on this planet and for everyone here?
That's great. No, that's very, what kind of businesses are they though? What field of
It's
businesses?
it's everything. So some of it is a forestry fund that
Okay.
I've invested in. Another investment is creating schools in the slums of East Africa,
Wow.
where schools weren't there before. So there's solar panels, just all kinds of companies.
So good. Wow. I am impressed with your portfolio. No, I'm impressed with your experience and your state of being, which seems very pleasant and happy and giving back. I think seems like when people reach a level of satisfaction, all they have is to give back. And that's
Mm,
where you're at, it seems like, in a very loving place. So good luck with the book. And can we see
yes,
the book again?
sure
Perfectly
can.
prepared. And the
You can.
subtitle is the oak. How do you, I
the
can't, it's a
the
little
love
bit.
affair behind Silver Oak Cellars. Yeah, I know it's a bit reflective. So it's perfectly paired. The love affair behind Silver Oak Cellars,
Mhm.
and yeah, so that's the book. The journey. Let me just say one thing in that the book starts out actually with Justin's death because it's what it's the moment that changed everything. Um, but when we have these things, these moments that happen in our life, there's always an opportunity to end up doing something that we've never done before or doing something different.
Like what?
And so, well, regenerative investing,
Oh,
like that.
uh,
Yeah. So we have, but also, I've traveled, I've been in the Amazon, and I've done all kinds of things that I had never done before.
wow.
So when there's a loss, there's always we do need to reinvent ourselves, and there's so many possibilities of what we can do.
And you were very happy about writing it all out because it was another way of reinventing yourself, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And the writing, I would think, came from that same place you made that wine, that from like you put the
Mm.
feeling into the book, into the words, and then the essence, the flavor came out of the feelings.
Yes, yeah,
And so,
yeah.
well, I'm
Well
looking
put.
forward to that, to reading the book. It sounds like it
Yeah.
does sound really great. How can people find the book? Where would they buy this?
They can find the book. It is on Amazon.
Mhm.
It's also on my website, bonnymeyer.com, BonnyMeyer.com. You can buy the book there. You can buy Justin's book on
Justin
wine
has a book?
appreciation.
Oh,
He,
wait.
he wrote a book. My daughter wrote a book.
Wait,
It's a
what's Justin?
cookbook.
What's Justin's book called?
Justin's book is called Plain Talk About Fine Wine.
Oh, so he wrote a wine book, huh?
Yeah, the wine appreciation book. And my
Oh,
daughter, my daughter wrote a wine cookbook that focuses on port. So I'm the third author in this family.
Oh, great. No, that's
Yeah,
great. So you could sell them all together, right?
yeah, yeah.
Well, if I'm ever out there in Northern California, I will stop by for a glass of wine.
Good. You'll love it.
Well, you'll help me appreciate wine more because I really don't have a sense of that. This is white wine you're making or red wine?
Mostly red,
Mostly
mostly
red.
Cabernet. Yeah, mostly Cabernet. But there are all kinds of wine. We would find something that you would. We could do a great wine tasting, and we would find two or three that you really love.
Okay, great. And
Okay.
the what's the name of the wine that you have? The oak
Um, the
silver.
the old the winery I used to have is called Silver Oak. The winery I have now is Meyer Family Cellars.
But Silver Oak, was that red wine too that you
It was
made?
just Cabernet.
Uh-huh. And did you start with any wine, with any grape bushes, or you planted them all and then created the wine?
It takes. We started when we started. We harvested grapes from a vineyard that our financial partner had just bought.
Uh,
So we started that way. But if you're going to start by planting the grapes, it takes 5 years before you make your first wine, and then another 4 years while you age it. So it's a long-term process.
you age your wine for at least 4 years.
Yes, the
Uh,
Cabernets. Yeah.
and so even starting off when you picked grapes, it took 4 years to get your wine on the market.
Yes.
Is that wine, you sold the winery, but is that wine still being packaged?
Yes. So Silver Oak is still a very famous winery.
Is that, and
Yep.
that's the name of the bottle? Is it called Silver Oak?
It's just called Silver Oak.
Okay, and that's how many different types of wines do you have there?
Just just Cabernet. So Silver Oak is just Cabernet.
Okay, I'm
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah. Meyer Cellars is there's white wines and red wines. There's Cabernet and Sauvignon Blanc and Chardonnay and
Is that
all
more
those.
interesting to have a variety of wines, or it doesn't matter?
It's what my son wanted to do.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
you're
Yeah. Yeah.
well, well, Bonnie. I really enjoyed talking. I mean, you know, Beth sends me great people, and I never know who to expect. But this has been very fun, a lot of fun, and
Yeah. I've enjoyed it too, Ellen.
yeah. So okay, I'll look for
Thanks.
your book, Bonnie Meyer. Is it bonniemeyer.com? Is the
It
website?
is. Yep.
Perfectly paired, a beautiful love story with Bonnie and her husband and their life making wine, and it's really a spiritual kind of story, more, as much as it is a
Yeah.
love story. It's not
It is.
mundane. It's something else. There's something else going on. I can see you're
Mm,
very happy just to emanate
mm,
that. So.
mm.
mm. Thank you. This is Alan Steinfeld for New Realities, and thanks for watching. And look for more interviews on this YouTube channel. You go to youtube.com/newrealities. Thank you. Thank you, Bonnie.